Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. My gosh, I am delighted to have you guys with me. If you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get a link to the show notes, the live stream, the podcast. And also, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, when my book comes out, I will send you the pre-order link. It's going through the editing process. You Shall Be as Gods, How Progressive Secularism is Becoming Its Own Religion. I know that's a lot of you are interested in that topic, and I happen to have a book coming out on it. I want to talk about the situation in Central and South America before I move over to the Houthi issue, but I got to start in a different way. Let's talk first about Uganda, because it's all, to a degree, there's a relevance here, and I want to talk about Uganda. Uganda is an African nation that has passed laws punishing homosexuality. And there's international outrage of Western nations threatening boycotts, sanctions, and other things for what Uganda has done. A Republican member of Congress from Tennessee actually flew to Uganda as a show of support for the country. He's definitely in the minority. This is not to step on any of your toes. But Western values, Western liberal values, don't necessarily translate into areas of the world that are deeply religiously conservative. It's notable, for example, so the Vatican, it did not authorize blessings for same-sex marriage, but it was so muddied and ambiguous in what it actually did. It was interpreted as such, and people in same-sex relationships getting blessings. And it was certainly designed to be ambiguous enough that those who support same-sex relationships who are Catholic could say the Pope is evolving on that issue. It is notable that the loudest condemnation of what the Vatican did in that regard came from African bishops. In fact, the entirety, the bishops on the entire continent of Africa. Now, for a perspective, the continent of Africa is so big, the United States, India, China, Eastern Europe, and much of Western Europe would all fit into Africa. When you look on maps, you tend to think that Africa is as big as the North American continent. Actually, it's massive, massively bigger. And the entirety of the bishops in Africa came out and condemned what had happened at the Vatican. And white liberal Westerners are upset about that. You cannot, though, expect your Western liberal values to be applied to these conservative African nations. They're not compatible. And what's notable is for all of the bellyaching about colonialism and anti-colonialism from the left, when these nations do things like this that are deeply conservative tribally, deeply conservative in politics, deeply conservative relating to the African tribal political natures of the past, the anti-colonial wokes get apoplectic and demand that we impose Western values on them. So the anti-colonialists are totally fine with being anti-colonialists until the non-colonies, free of the colonies, do things they want, and then the anti-colonialist whites get upset about it and want to impose their values. Now we move from Africa to Central America. We should start now with Nayib Bukele. He is the young 40-year-old president of El Salvador who got elected. El Salvador, you need to understand, El Salvador was the murder capital of the world. It was one of the deadliest countries on the planet. You did not go to El Salvador. And the deadly nature of El Salvador caused a humanitarian crisis, and a lot of refugees crossing the American border have come from El Salvador. Now, if you don't know where El Salvador is, if you go down the Central American landmass of Mexico, south of Mexico, you run into Guatemala. And south of Guatemala, you have Honduras, which is on the Gulf of Mexico side, and El Salvador, which is on the Pacific side. And then you have Nicaragua, then you have Costa Rica, then you have Panama. El Salvador is a small nation. San Salvador is the capital. And they've been riddled with gang violence. There were thousands of people murdered a year in El Salvador. Gangs were holding people hostage. Gangs would show up and say, you're going to pay us $10,000 tomorrow or we're going to kill your whole family. You can't afford it. You don't have $10,000. You'd literally pack up and start walking, and you would walk north to the American border. Bukele came in and declared a state of emergency and rounded up all the gangs. He rounded up over 70,000 people. Judges let 7,000 of them out of jail, but he suspended a lot of civil rights. He abandoned essentially the habeas corpus rule of you got to show proof of why you're arrested, and just threw a bunch of people in jail, and crime went away. He's the most popular politician in El Salvador. He's so popular, the El Salvadoran Constitution says you can't run for re-election after you've served one full term. So what they've done is they've allowed him, the government, like a unified government, has allowed him to take a leave of absence, put his preferred person in charge of the government, and he can say, well, I get to run for a second term because I haven't fully completed one full term. And they're letting him get away with it. He's that popular. And there's very little opposition to him doing it. And he's been roundly condemned by Joe Biden. He's been condemned by Justin Trudeau. He's been condemned by the United Nations. He's been condemned by the European Union, saying, you're violating civil rights. You know, I'm a big proponent of our civil rights. But you're going to a Central American poor country that is riddled with gang violence that's gotten out of control, where people live in fear on a daily basis, and even the government leaders get assassinated regularly, and this guy imposes law and order and the crime goes away. You're going to lecture him that, well, you need to let all these people out of jail now. It actually fosters a lot of resentment. So he's a 42-year-old president. Now we go down Central America, and Panama runs into Colombia. In South America, it's the northwestern corner of South America where it connects into the Isthmus of Panama as Colombia. And south of Colombia, follow the Pacific coast down south of Colombia, you get to Ecuador. When El Salvador stopped being the murder capital of the world because of Bukele, the president, Ecuador became the murder capital of the world. In 2023, there were over 4,000 murders, double the number from 2022. And they had enough in Ecuador. They looked at what El Salvador did, and they elected a 36-year-old named Daniel Noboa. Daniel Noboa's father was an exceedingly wealthy businessman who tried to run for president and was rejected. Center-left, somewhat populist. They had an election this past year, and there was an anti-corruption candidate running, and the gangs assassinated him. So people rallied to Noboa. Now, Noboa has a problem. A lot of the drug cartels in South America are flowing their drugs out of the Amazon through to Ecuador. Ecuador is bordered by Peru and by Colombia. And in southern Colombia, in the Andes region and down into the valley, And in Peru, in the northern regions of Peru, you got a lot of drug cartels making cocaine and other things, and they route it through Ecuador. And the gangs have gotten out of control in Ecuador. There's a major gang leader in Ecuador who has been in prison, and he has disappeared. Adolfo Macias, the leader of the Los Chaneros criminal gang. He's in prison for a 34-year sentence. He's gone. They think he's escaped. And now there's a massive gang war in Ecuador. All hell's broken loose. And the reason is because Noboa, the president, is doing what Bukele did, and all the gangs have seen how effective it was with Bukele. They're fighting back hard. So what Noboa wants to do is he wants to build supermax prisons. The prisons in Ecuador are not great. They're underfunded. They're not in good shape. They're pretty easy to escape from. And the drug cartels have taken over the prisons. If you're a prison guard, you're very likely to be murdered in Ecuador. So no one wants to be a prison guard. They've got to build new, better prisons. He also wants to arm the police with military precision weapons that the United States has now agreed to supply. And he also wants the voters to vote. See, Ecuador doesn't extradite its citizens to other countries, and it's part of the Constitution. And so he's putting it up for a vote so that they can get rid of their gang lords and drug lords and force them into other countries. And the criminal gang elements are having enough. So yesterday, there was a TV station, a public television station, that was stormed by gang members. They came in with guns and machetes, and they held everybody hostage. They've all now been arrested. Now, what's so notable here is that, again, like Bukele in El Salvador, in Ecuador, Noboa is essentially suspending and curtailing a lot of civil rights that you and I would say are bad things we shouldn't do. But he's out of options. He doesn't know how else to operate to quickly contain the situation. Essentially, Ecuador is in a civil war situation where it's drug lords, cartels, and gang members fighting the military and the police. He's trying to get clamped down. You fix the situation, you resolve the situation, then you can say, okay, consider Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus. The Constitution says only Congress can do this. The Supreme Court told Abraham Lincoln, you're not the one allowed to suspend habeas corpus. And Lincoln says, okay, come enforce it yourselves. He was desperate in the Civil War. He did things he shouldn't have done, constitutionally shouldn't have been able to do. He acted in many ways like a dictator to preserve the Union. And now all these people who lionize Abraham Lincoln, Western elites, are looking at Noboa and Bukele saying, y'all can't do this. This violates the Western world order. They're doing it. And it's saving lives. It's keeping people safe. And here's the problem for the United States. You know one of the biggest trading partners in Ecuador? China. If the United States isn't willing to step in and help, China will. And if China begins making loans to Ecuador, you know what China's going to do? They're going to make contingent on repayment of the loans, giving them land for military operations. So Joe Biden can either hold his head high and say we refuse to help these countries that are doing things that we don't like when it comes to the rights of the people, and let China get a foothold in South America militarily, or Joe Biden can suck it up and help Ecuador, because Ecuador has come to us first for military and police assistance. Ecuador has come to us first, not China. So Joe Biden's going to have to decide, does he want to give China a foothold in South America militarily, or does he want to suck up his pride and say, you know what, we're going to help these guys fight the gangs? And here's the irony here. If Joe Biden is willing to help, he could also reduce the flow of people coming across the southern border. But Biden idolizes Jimmy Carter, the craziest thing. Of all the presidents to idolize, why one of the worst? But Biden does. And he loved that Jimmy Carter tied American foreign policy to human rights. And he could be opening a door to China by doing that. It's the most demented thing. But when the guy's got dementia, what do you expect? Noboa in Ecuador needs our support. And members of Congress on a bipartisan coalition want to actually help him. He is trying to shut down these gangs that are running rampant in Ecuador, and hopefully we can help him. It's a big deal. The South American and Central American countries, what's notable is they've gotten so fed up with the political establishments that allowed this to fester, they're electing 30 and 40-year-olds who've had enough, who are angry about it, and are willing to just round up everybody and throw them in jail. American cities could probably learn something from these people.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I got to play you this exchange between Peter Doocy and John Kirby at the White House press briefing yesterday. Just listen to this.
If the administration is going to go to such great lengths to keep secrets about the defense secretary's health, how can anybody be certain that the administration would not go to the same lengths to keep secret problems with President Biden's health in the future?
If you could logically argue, and you can't, but if you could logically argue that the
He's 81 years old.
Wait a second. Just give me a second here, bub. I'll get there. If the administration made some sort of Machiavellian effort across the board to keep this from getting public, then I think your question has merit and certainly is a fair one. I don't think it's a fair one because that's not what happened here, Peter. What happened here is the Secretary of Defense, for whatever reason, I can't answer the question why, that information wasn't shared. It wasn't shared widely in the department, and it certainly wasn't shared with the other agencies. It's not good. It's certainly not good, which is why, again, we want to learn from this. We want to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, the way you make sure it doesn't happen again is you hire people whose gut reaction is not to hide secrets from the President of the United States. The idea that you've got to go through a review, you have to go through a review process of how this happened. It happened because of Lloyd Austin. I got an email from a listener down in Florida yesterday. She says, is Lloyd Austin a DEI pick? Yes. Yes, Lloyd Austin is absolutely a DEI pick. Joe Biden bragged about wanting to have the most diverse cabinet in America, so he wanted to hire the first black Secretary of Defense. So he picked Lloyd Austin. The whole reason Lloyd Austin is Secretary of Defense is because he's a black man. That is absolutely true. You can be offended by me telling you the truth, but that's what Joe Biden said. So he picked a guy based on the color of his skin to be the Secretary of Defense and didn't bother to assess whether the guy's gut calls would be right, and Lloyd Austin's gut calls appear to never be right. And now consider the situation in the Middle East where we are releasing press releases begging the Houthi to cut it out. And it's going to provoke a regional war. The situation is destabilizing. The situation is not good. The situation is getting worse. And we may be on the verge of an all-out war in the Middle East. It's why Anthony Blinken is in the Middle East doing shuttle diplomacy there, trying to get everyone to settle down. Because Iran is pushing all the right buttons to provoke everyone to more military action. And, the most asinine part is that had we issued a forceful response to the Houthi to begin with, they would have backed down. But instead, we're just sending them press releases. Next, we're going to send them hashtags, I'm sure. Surely the dreaded hashtag will stop the Houthi when the joint press statement does not. They say we're being led by adults. We're being led by clowns. Unserious people who've never worked in the private sector and do not understand that there are bad people on the planet. The only people Joe Biden seems to think are bad on the planet are Trump supporters. He can't even recognize the fact that the Houthi need to be bombed out of existence in order to stabilize the region.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, very delighted to have you. I want to go back to the audio from New York Congresswoman, what's her name, Yvette Clarke. I want you to listen to this again. I played it earlier. This is Yvette Clarke. She's talking. I'm not sure what interview she's in, but she kind of gives away the game on how a lot of Democrats view this wave of illegal immigrants coming across the border. It has nothing to do with new votes for the Democrats. I know a lot of Republicans. It's kind of like the Michelle Obama's going to run. It's the Democrats want this new wave of voters, the Great Replacement Theory, and all that. Listen to what she says here, because she has a point. She says out loud what a lot of them think privately.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
You got that? For redistricting purposes. So I don't know if you know this or not, but the way the census works, it's not just American citizens who are counted. When the census workers go out into America, they're under order to count the population, because under the Constitution, it doesn't say citizens. Let me pull up Article 1 of the Constitution so you can get a sense of this, because people don't seem to understand this little nugget of truth. Representatives, let's see, Article 1, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective number, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those boundaries to service for terms, excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. That obviously that was the reference to slaves. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress, and within every subsequent term of 10 years in such manner as by law shall be directed. The number of representatives shall not exceed one for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least one representative, and until such enumeration shall be made, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose blah, 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 blah. But again, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states by adding the whole number of free persons. Doesn't say citizens. It doesn't say citizens. So when they tabulate people for purpose of the census counts everybody. The only people the census doesn't count are tourists who are headed back to their country. Legal, illegal, resident aliens, non-resident aliens who are here illegally, citizens, everybody's counted. What Yvette Clarke is saying is she needs more people to bolster her district. New York, California, Illinois, people are leaving those states. They're starting to lose congressional districts. California, which has always increased in number, is starting to see exodus. So if California wants to maintain its clout in the United States House of Representatives, forget citizens. California needs illegal aliens to hang around and be counted in the census. You want New York to regrow its population? Well, all those illegal aliens who have moved to New York, they're taxing the system. The people don't want them. People are starting to rebel, but it helps the members of Congress. You want to know why Democratic members of Congress don't want this? Has nothing to do with great replacement. Well, I won't say nothing, but it's not so much about great replacement. It's not so much about a new base of voters for the Democratic Party. It's about the census. Democratic strongholds are losing, and while the census impacts people, think about this. How is the Electoral College formed? The total numbers of members of the House plus your 2 senators. So if your state has 14 members of Congress, your Electoral College is 16 because you have 2 senators plus 14 members of Congress. That equals 16 members of the Electoral College. These Democratic parts of the nation, they're beginning to lose people. As a result, their clout in the Electoral College is beginning to shrink. So by bringing in a pile of illegal immigrants, they're not going to be able to vote. They're not going to become citizens, but they're going to grow your numbers for the census, which will grow your number of congressional districts, which will grow your numbers in the Electoral College. Yvette Clarke, Congresswoman from New York, has given away the game on this. People don't pay attention to this issue. It has way more to do with the census than great replacement or a new base of voters for the Democratic Party. It has to do with the census, because under the Constitution of the United States of America, it is, just so you know, Article 1, Section 1, or Section 2, Clause 3. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective number, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free people, excluding Indians not taxed. So if you have an Indian tribe that doesn't pay taxes, it doesn't get included in the census for a portion, but if they do pay taxes, they do get included. Illegal immigrants, they buy something from the grocery store, they pay sales tax, so they're included. So the Democrats grow their numbers for the Electoral College. Rarely do you see a Democratic member of Congress speak so frankly, but here she is saying this again, just one more time so you hear. This is Yvette Clarke, New York Congresswoman from the Brooklyn area.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes.
I need more people in my district just for redistricting purposes. There you go. Gives away the game. Now, the problem here, of course, is that the backlash is coming from the American people. Huge backlash is beginning to come. In New York City, they have sent kids home from school today to do remote learning so that illegal immigrants can be housed in these schools. In Chicago, they're overrunning O'Hare International Airport and parts of the city because some of them have bust there. And by the way, the majority of the people, they're blaming Ron DeSantis and they're blaming Greg Abbott. I had some idiot complain earlier, emailing me, I don't know why Ron DeSantis is complaining he's the one busted. They're actually, the majority of the people coming to New York and Chicago and stuff, they're actually being sent by immigration. They're not being bussed by Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis. It's immigration is sending them out. They're so overwhelmed in Texas and Arizona now, they're sending them elsewhere. And so they're winding up in New York and Chicago. And it's not Abbott. They're blaming the Republicans, but it's not them. It's not them at all. It's just the Border Patrol agents sending them. And it helps the Democrats in the Electoral College. Now, let's go to Bob on the phone. Bob, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Eric. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Well, it's bright and sunny, little nippy, and I'm trying to get things done before the cold and wet moves in.
My goodness, have you seen the temperatures for next week? Gracious.
Well, I grew up north. I hope you don't hold that against me.
I do not hold it against you. You got south as quick as God would let you.
Well, work took me here, and I've been thankful for it ever since.
Good.
Holy cow. I'm coming up on a whole bunch of police cars in front of the state. I got to put the phone off my down on my lap.
Well, this is a first. We've got Bob admitting he's breaking the law while driving down the road while the police are coming by.
Well, you know what it is? They must have had a police chase because there's at least 4 or 5 damaged county and city police cars there.
Wow.
Well,
all right, Bob, while you're breaking the law, we better get to the point here.
okay. Well, I also got some cigars for you. I told Mr. Snerdley, your assistant, about that, and
Excellent.
I owe you an email, so I got to figure out how to get them to you.
We can make that happen.
I can't remember the name of them. I got them from the president of the company. That's a long story.
All right, Bob. All right, though, we got to get to your point.
Yes. I think what's going to happen is North Korea is beating their chests, saying South Korea is their biggest enemy. China's talking about Taiwan. We got Iran instigating everything. I think all of them are going to happen between now and the election. They've got nothing to lose. Biden, I think, won't take any action whatsoever to stop any of that, and a lot of Americans are going to get upset, and I think that'll be a big issue, and they'll vote for whoever's going to be the Republican candidate.
Look,
on your second point,
yeah, go ahead.
I like that idea, what you were talking about with the census, but the census was not too long ago, so it's going to be a number of years.
Yes. Yep.
And they may dilute and move elsewhere because who wants to live in New York right now? You know?
No kidding.
So,
yeah, and so sadly, Bob, I am staring at a sticky note on my computer monitor that says, don't forget to mention when the census is. And then I totally forgot with this thing right in front of my eyes to mention the point that you just made.
Well, at least you only got one sticky note. I got a dashboard full of them, and I can't read half of them.
Look, it's a great point, though, because the census isn't going to happen until 2030, and these people are going to move around then, and some of them are going to disappear. Some of them aren't even going to want to be counted for the census. It's going to take them a while,
Some
but
of them
that's
may not
why
want to even stay here on their own.
Exactly. But that's why the Democratic members of Congress don't want to do anything about this. It has way less to do with a new voting block and everything to do with gaming the Electoral College as New York, California, Illinois, and these New England states begin to lose populations. All right, Bob, I'm going to let you go before you get in trouble with the police.
Well, I'm past them now, so we're safe. Thank you, Eric, and I look forward to hearing from you when I want get you the email about how to get you the cigars.
Yes, please. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much. Drive carefully. Bob, first of all, thank you, but also don't break the law. Don't break the law. We can't encourage that. Jim, all right, welcome to the show, Jim. You're going to be the last caller.
Clarksville, the trout capital. Don't have any cigars for you, but I do have a sassy special. It catches a lot of trout at the barbless fly.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm going to get a little technical here, and I hope I don't lose a lot of the guests here, but it's all about definitions, legal definitions. And we're not talking about people. We're talking about persons and not citizens. You brought up the point, the distinction between a citizen and a person. And it says a free person. I'm having trouble in Black's Fourth finding the definition of free persons, but I do have the definition that says that basically a person, including a juristic person, artificial persons, are, if they're not for commerce, I imagine that they're free, but basically it includes corporations, trusts, LLCs, fraternal associations, and a myriad of different type of artificial entities. And it seems to me if anybody wanted to game the system, we should be arguing if it's about persons, why can't we make a bunch of business trusts or non-business trusts, basically persons, and then have them be counted for the census?
Well, okay, that's actually a very clever point, but there's a problem. There is a Supreme Court case that sets out what a free person is, and it actually has to be an individual human being. Part of that case was
you have
historically.
That before you?
Yes, I do. You
okay.
know the
For
case.
geeks like me, I'm going to look it up.
You know the case. Dred Scott.
Ah.
Yes. Yes. Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857. The Supreme Court outlines free person. That's what the whole case is over, was Dred Scott a free person? And so technically, no, he was not. Horrible case, overruled by the events of the Civil War. But yeah, that's where we understand a free person can't be a corporation. It's got to be an actual human being.
Okay.
Yep. Random history
thanks,
there.
And the fish are still biting when you're ready to come back up. We'll see you soon.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Good to hear from you. All right. Yes. I knew that answer. You got to study Dred Scott and con law when you're in law school. All right. Now, we got to step out, take a quick time out before I go.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. My goodness gracious, we have covered a whole lot of ground today. Just gobs and gobs of stuff. Tonight, there will be a town hall with Donald Trump on Fox News and a debate between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis on CNN at the same time. What's notable here, I personally think, is kind of a tacit signal from Fox that they know Trump's probably going to be the nominee, and now after 2 years of ignoring him and hoping he would go away, they're putting him back on stage in the limelight with Brett Baer. And meanwhile, we'll see the ratings for DeSantis and Haley. If they were smart, they would avoid drawing the sharp contrast with each other and instead try to draw the sharp contrast with Trump. But I don't think they can do that. I think they're going to go after each other. And I don't know, honestly, like, I'm curious to see the two of them. Like, I volunteered to get the two of them behind the microphone and have a conversation, much like I do at the gathering. But they didn't take me up on it, or anyone else for that matter who made a similar offer. Now they're doing this debate, and if they're just going to yell at each other all night? It also depends on the moderators. It's going to be interesting to see how CNN, I don't know who's moderating. I assume it's Tapper. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see the two of them on stage together and how they connect to an audience when you don't have Vivek there to kind of grandstand. You don't have Chris Christie there to go after the two of them. How do they do it? And does it even matter? And I'm not so sure that it matters. I mean, if the polling is right, and this is the funny thing is everybody says, don't believe the polling, don't believe the polling. If the polling is right, Donald Trump's going to trounce them in Iowa, except, again, this is the issue here for the DeSantis team. They have a huge ground game operation to get people to the polls, and the blizzard is coming. Have y'all seen the weather forecast? It's not going to get above 0 in Iowa. Now, I've seen a lot of national reporters say, oh my gosh, who's going to show up? This is Iowa in the winter. If this stuff happens, they're used to it. So it's not going to be as off-putting for a lot of people. But if it is snowing hard, only the most committed are going to go. And this is where the DeSantis team whispers that in their estimation, Donald Trump thinks he has it in the bag and his supporters think they have it in the bag. So all of his supporters may just say, well, I don't have to go because everybody else is going to go, and then nobody shows up. But the DeSantis people turn their base out. They're kind of like hoping for all of these sorts of things to be able to play out. If he pulls it out, it certainly shakes up the race. Could rebound, though, to help Haley more than DeSantis in New Hampshire. I don't know. I have a lot I want to say on the state, frankly, of the DeSantis campaign, and I've kept my mouth shut out of respect for a lot of friends. But this campaign doesn't seem to be, to me, firing on all cylinders the way a winning presidential campaign should be. And the loud voices on social media aren't reflected in reality, I don't think. But we'll see if the ground game is as advertised on Monday in Iowa. I said on Twitter I thought he could win it, and I'm sure people will throw that back in my face if he doesn't. But I'm intrigued to see what happens on Monday, and I'll see the dynamic of these two on stage tonight.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.